Maybe you've done your rookie drafts. Maybe you haven't done your rookie drafts as of yet. But what you do know is that you're going to be rebuilding for the next couple of years. In today's video, I'm bringing you some key players that you should be going out and trading for if you are a rebuilding dynasty team. So stay tuned. All right, before I get into my video here, I do want to bring you a couple of honorable mentions and a pro tip, things that I do when I'm in a rebuilding phase for my dynasty team. And starting off with that pro tip is pivot off of running backs. Now, keep in mind, this is not the same if you do have a top 5 running back. If you have the Bijans, the Brees, the Jahmyr Gibbs, the Jonathan Taylors, you want to keep those players because you know that their fantasy success is going to at least be for the next 2 to 4 years, depending on who you have. Now, I would say anyone after that, I'm willing to pivot off of. I don't care if they're still in their first contract or even going into their second contract, okay, or already in their second contract with security. When I say pivot off of running backs, this also doesn't include rookie players either. So if I'm telling you right now, somebody you should pivot off of, like is a Saquon Barkley because you're in a rebuild now, rebuild mode, he's 27 years old. Maybe a Josh Jacobs who's on his second contract, who's also 26 years old. I would even throw in a Rachaad White because you know that his value is going to be decreasing by the time you're ready to compete and you need some other running back. So keep that in mind when I'm talking about this pro tips and pivoting off of running backs. My second player that I don't want to waste too much time on this guy, but I do believe he is a perfect player to pivot to is Kendre Miller. Look, I've brought Kendre Miller in multiple videos. So has Zach. We all know the youth, what's going to happen with Alvin Kamara in a year or two from now. He is still a viable asset and somebody who had really good, capital from the New Orleans Saints. Can he find a role in the next couple of years? He probably can. But look, I just don't want to spend too much time bringing him. But he is an honorable mention. Another one is Jackson Smith and Jigba, a phenomenal wide receiver that you can go out and trade for and know that the youth is still there. Him being very young, playing in Seattle, understanding that Tyler Lockett is older, understanding even DK Metcalf, who is 26 years old, already on his second contract. Where is he going to pivot to? Jackson Smith and Jigba, only 22 years old, who's also have been in multiple honorable mention, who's also not honorable mentions, but in rebuild videos and also has been in so many other type of videos. Just didn't want to spend too much time on Jackson Smith and Jigba. So let's get straight into my first player. My first rebuild asset that you should be going out and trying to acquire at the quarterback position is Michael Penix Jr. If you have been with us on our live streams during the draft, you must have seen that crazy of a conversation that Zach and I were having, more of an argument. But look, our disagreements when it comes down to Michael Penix. I do agree, Michael Penix, you will never get the type of value of a first round top 10 quarterback in the early second rounds of a rookie draft. You will never see that again. I don't believe that's ever happened before in the past. But what I do know is that if you are a contending team and you have solidified quarterbacks, I'm willing to pivot and draft a wide receiver at that 201 to 204 range. But if you are rebuilding, maybe you just won the championship and you just sold everyone, right? You had an older quarterback, you had running backs, you have wide receiver, whatever the case may be. But what you do need right now is a young quarterback, because in the first round, you drafted a Drake May, maybe you drafted a Ladd McConkey in the first round, but you also have an early second round pick. I would always encourage you, the rebuilding team, to draft Michael Penix. Because why? Yes, I do see Michael Penix starting in a couple of years because Kirk Cousins is an older quarterback coming off an ACL tear, and Michael Penix will see the field. And the way I'm picturing it, it won't be for the not next year, but the next 2 years, we won't see Michael Penix Jr. And that is perfect if you are a rebuilding team. And look, I get it. Michael Penix is an older quarterback sitting behind Kirk Cousins for 2 years. He's 24 years old. He's going to be 26 years old. That's okay, because by the time he's 26 in this scenario, he's going to be younger than a lot of the quarterbacks that you probably can't trade for at the time. Or you're probably saying, well, I'd rather pivot off to some of these younger or older quarterbacks. Think about it. Think about this. Justin Herbert in 2 years will be 28, which is not old. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is 28 right now. You still want to buy Patrick Mahomes. In 2 years, Josh Allen will be 30 years old. I mean, do you get what I'm saying? In 2 years, Kyler Murray will be 28 years old, and he is still younger. still younger, who may not have all the experience, but you're rebuilding, and that's okay, than all of these other quarterbacks that you're going to hope and try and get later. In 2 years, you're not going to, maybe you will, but I'm just saying this out loud. Maybe you're not going to want to buy Kyler Murray in 2 years. Maybe you're not going to want to buy an Anthony Richardson or Justin Herbert in 2 years, or a Trevor Lawrence or a Brock Purdy in 2 years. Obviously, things can change. I'm thinking about the future in 2 to 4 years from now. Obviously, we want all those guys that I just mentioned right now. And maybe some people would disagree with me about wanting to own those guys in 2 to 4 years. But if I'm thinking about rebuilding at the moment and knowing that I'm not going to be winning and having as early draft capital when it comes down to my rookie picks, Michael Penix is the perfect quarterback to do that. An Heisman winning quarterback, a guy who has produced 2 top first round picks, not 2 top, but 2 day 1 and day 2, right? You saw Rome Odunze go in the top 10, top 12 of the NFL draft. You saw Jalen Polk go in the early second, literally one of the first picks in the second round, and Jalen McMillan being a 3rd round pick. These are all very talented wide receivers. And Michael Penix is going to be with Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, and whatever other weapons the Atlanta Falcons are going to be bringing in the next 2 to 4 years. So keep that in mind. Michael Penix is my first rebuilding player. All right, going into my next player. A lot of people, I believe, are going to disagree with me on this play, and that's okay because of the age and maybe because of the situation. But hear me out. Tank Dell. Yes, Tank Dell, who is 24 years old as a rookie, 24.5 as a rookie, is somebody you should be going out and trying to acquire in a rebuild team. Yes, a lot of people are concerned about the age, which I'm not concerned about, and I'll tell you why. Second, also what's going to happen with this team with Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs, let me remind you, signed a 1-year contract, and they don't have to re-sign him going into the next year. Now, if they do, we might have a different conversation. But the price currently on Tank Dell, who is wide receiver 23 in the community right now, I think it's a pretty fair price to go out and get somebody who is currently, in my opinion, the wide receiver 1 on this team. Yes, Nico Collins did finish higher, but I think that was a little bit skewed because Tank Dell missed the second half of the season where he fractured his leg on the goal line, keep in mind. Tank Dell is somebody I believe is a phenomenal route runner and someone that can easily get separation and be a yards after the catch threat. Let me remind you, Nico Collins, this was his first breakout. Maybe that's because of CJ Stroud, but that's exactly why I want to go out and acquire Tank Dell, whether it's for now or in the future. And look, you can buy him now, but maybe you're one of these people that believes that Stephon Diggs might impact him a little bit. Maybe you can even wait in season, and then if he is a little bit impacted, maybe you can go out and buy him because Stephon Diggs, once again, is on a 1-year contract. Now, one of the biggest reasons why I do believe Tank Dell is being overlooked and undervalued is because of what we saw this past year. Tank Dell didn't break out really until week 8. Yes, he had a couple of big games in the first half of the season, but he didn't really get the workload and it was very inconsistent. Let me break it down for you. Week 1, 48% snap share, 6.4 fantasy points. Week 2, 79% snap share. That's where he had his first big game, 20 points. Week 3, very similar, 61% over 25 points. Then he goes back down to fantasy points per game with 3.9, but he had 70% of the snap share. Week 5, we saw 36% of the snap share against Atlanta, and that was 8.3 points. Why was his value up and down at that time? It was so confusing. Then he misses week 6, has a bye week, and then comes back. And this is where we see a massive, massive boost in his production, right? Week 8, didn't break out as of yet, but 78% of the snaps, 6.1 fantasy points. This is where he has his big breakout. Week 9, 85% in the snap share, his highest so far in the season, 29.6%. Week 10, he breaks out again, 96%, 18.9, and then you can see week 11, week 12, and then week 13, he got 0 points because that's when he broke his leg in that goal line attempt. One of the biggest reasons, and then he misses the last 4 games of the season, okay? But one of the biggest reasons why I do believe he is overlooked and undervalued is because what he could have been in the second half. He could have easily been a league winner in the second half of the season. He could have been in the conversations of the Jaden Reeds, of the Rashee Rices. He could have been that type of caliber player where we're valuing these guys at a premium. I guess obviously before Jaden Reed, not Jaden Reed, but Rashee Rice was going through all those legal concerns. This is the type of production we could potentially be seeing. Now, if you were to extrapolate his workload from that span in the second half of the season, where he broke out from weeks 8 to 12, I'm not including the game that he broke his leg because he got 0 fantasy points and he was affected by that. He would have finished as the wide receiver 3. That is higher than Puka Nacua, A.J. Brown, DJ Moore, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, Stephon Diggs. Now, it's not a perfect extrapolation. Even if that was still within the top, regardless, he would have finished top 10. How about we put it there? If Tank Dell would have played a full season and finished top 10, would you be looking at him differently? Yes, because you're viewing Nico Collins differently. Nico Collins in the community is wide receiver 18, and he still is not getting the respect that I believe he should be getting. I do believe he should be a top, 15 type of wide receiver. These are the type of reasons and excuse me, and players you should be going out and trying to acquire. Somebody that's going to be linked with the quarterback, that's going to be getting the production, and we know that's going to be there for the next couple of years because Nico Collins is the last year of his contract. Does he get extended? I'm not sure. Right? Does Stephon Diggs get extended? I'm not sure. But what we do know is that Tank Dell is with CJ Stroud for at least the next 3 years. So Tank Dell is my next buy player. Before I get into my next player, guys, if you want to be a part of this community, all you have to do is sign up at flockfantasy.com/land. Not only do you are a part of this community, you unlock all the perks as well. All the 2024 rookie report and breakdown that we've seen with our fantasy hit rates, our rookie rankings, our positional rankings, and so much more. You get a dynasty team review for one of your dynasty teams, and Zach and I will break it down piece by piece, player by player, and give you the best possible outcome for you to win that championship. Not only that, you get also a fantasy hotline, and wait, there's more, and so much more that you see on the screen here. All you have to do is go to flockfantasy.com/land, the best place to support what Zach and I are doing here. Use our promo code, get 30% off, and you can unlock all these perks. All right, going into my next player at the wide receiver position, I did kind of mention him in my Tank Dell take. That is Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed is a phenomenal go out and somebody that you should be going out and buying at the moment. Great wide receiver out of Michigan State. First year kind of breaks out a little bit, right? It finishes as a top 25 wide receiver, averaging 13.6 fantasy points per game. But there's a lot of caveats there. Christian Watson missed time. Aaron Jones missed a lot of time as well in that backfield, who we thought we're going to lean on a little bit more when Christian Watson got hurt. That wasn't the case. Jaden Reed was the guy, and we saw the emergence of Jordan Love. Very similar take to Tank Dell, and somebody that is still undervalued in my eyes in the community. You thought Tank Dell was a good value at wide receiver 23 in the community. Jaden Reed is wide receiver 30. Wide receiver 30, and this is a guy who finished as a top 25 in his rookie year. And now, yes, I kind of mentioned the caveats, but I do believe Christian Watson and Jaden Reed are going to be back-to-back in being fantasy relevant, especially here with Jordan Love, who has emerged as a top 10 quarterback in Dynasty, or top 12, let me rephrase that, top 12 quarterback in Dynasty, depending on how you see it. I have him top 12. Some people have him top 10. It just depends on how you see it with the youth as well. He was round 2 draft capital as well, so that hit rate is significantly higher when it does come down to a round 2 wide receiver rather than a round 3. And I know a lot of people are talking about, what about Dontavion Wicks? What about Romeo Doubs? What about all these other players on this team? Jordan Love can produce multiple fantasy relevant wide receivers. Why? Because we've seen it. We've seen Romeo Doubs have these opportunities in season. We've seen Dontavion Wicks have these opportunities in season. We've seen Jaden Reed and Christian Watson, when he was healthy, have all these opportunities in season. Jaden Reed is still wide receiver 30 and being dismissed, being drafted late in dynasty startups. And being a throw-in in a lot of pieces here. At the beginning of the early of the offseason, Zach and I am saying, hey, why don't you, if you can get Jaden Reed for like the 112, 111, why not go out and get him because of how high his value was at the time? Now still wide receiver 30, his value shifts. It may be crazy, but would you want, a Jalen Polk or Jaden Reed? That's kind of where his value is at currently right now. Jermaine Burton, right? A Keon Coleman. I'd rather personally have Jaden Reed. I know a lot of people like Keon Coleman, but for me, if you can pivot to someone like a Jaden Reed that has a phenomenal price at the wide receiver 30 currently, I'm willing to do that every single day. All right, my last play you should be going out and acquire at the tight end position. Maybe he's being thrown in dynasty trades, right? Maybe you're sending away one of your big top assets and you're saying, you know what, let me get Luke Musgrave in the return as well. And I know this may not be exciting, it may not be sexy, but hear me out. Once again, Luke Musgrave, phenomenal draft capital going to the Green Bay Packers, an early second round pick or mid second round pick, excuse me. And the weapons are there. And kind of, once again, Remy similar to Jaden Reed. Who is he linked up with? What is that going to look like? A lot of people were believing in Tucker Kraft. I believe is Luke Musgrave because of the opportunity and the workload. And the hit rate for a second round tight end is great. A 42.1 hit rate in the last 10 years for tight ends that went in the early or in the second round as a whole. And look, I get it. The tight end landscape is very up and down, very volatile, especially when we saw Sam Laporta finish as a tight end 1 this past year. And now the expectation has just risen for the tight end position. That is wrong, okay? And I think this is why someone like a Dalton Kincaid, someone like Luke Musgraves are phenomenal values because of their draft capital and because of their situation. And Sam Laporta, yeah, he may have finished tight end 1 and have been an outlier, but these guys have also produced and have also decent fantasy production for the tight end position. Now, Luke Musgrave did struggle with injuries, and he did finish as a tight end 31 this year. He missed the last 6 games this past season, but when he was on the field, we saw a decent amount of fantasy production. Now, it wasn't nail-biting fantasy production, but he was doing all right? I mean, he was averaging 66% of the snap share on that field, especially with all the weapons around him, right? Think of Aaron Jones. Think of Dontavion Wicks, Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs. There was a lot of mouths to feed in this backfield, and he still got 66% of the snap share as a tight end, which is pretty phenomenal. I do believe that's going to be rising coming into this season. And look, I said this multiple times, extrapolation is not perfect, but we have to take what Sam Laporta did this past year and really look at what happens if Sam Laporta would have finished the full year. If he would have finished the full year, he would have been averaging 7.4 fantasy points per game, and he would have finished around, once again, not a perfect science, around tight end 16 or 15. Now, if you would have told me that tight end 15 or 16 in his first year, well, you say, well, okay, that's a top 15 type of tight end on somebody that was also sharing a lot of workload with 3 other people. And look, Dalton Kincaid finished as a tight end 11, and people are saying he's so underwhelming. That's not what we were expecting for Dalton Kincaid going to the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen. He also had Stephon Diggs. He also didn't but get a lot of the workload until the second half of the season. Luke Musgrave is not going to be somebody that's going to be demanding targets. He is somebody that's going to be getting the big plays and getting touchdowns for Jordan Love in the red zone area. Once again, this is not a sexy pick, but if you're somebody, maybe you have a Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews or a TJ Hawkinson who is struggling with injuries right now, and we're not sure what he's going to look like coming into 2024. If I can get value, in draft capital in the future, or maybe players plus add Luke Musgrave to this deal, that is something I'm willing to do every single time. Guys, those are my top 4 players and my honorable mentions as well. Comment down below somebody that you wish I talked about in this video. And as always, it's all love.
Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.